Hi everyone, today I am visiting Jacksonville, Florida for the first time to play on stream at Best Bet Jacksonville. I had some time to kill before the stream, so I checked out some art at the Cummer Museum and Gardens with my dad, which gets a thumbs up from me. Now to the action. We're playing 2-5 no limit with bomb pots every 30 minutes, and it is a tougher than average lineup because most of us are visiting from out of town for a poker cruise, which will be another video. So, in the 1 and the 8 seats, we have Canadians Steven and Jimmy, Pierre the Frenchman in 2, vlogger Texas Tommy in the 3, brothers Kryptonite and Linux Ninja take 4 and 6, with Mr. Chicken Parm holding it down for the locals in the 5 seat. That leaves me in the 7. The table agrees to a tequila shot, and about an hour in, I start picking up some hands. The first one is a double board bomb pot with 7-6 of hearts. I flop a straight flush draw on the top board, and I whiff the second. I range check from the hijack, and the flop checks through. On the turns, I pick up a gut shot on the bottom, but brick the top, and with a piece of both boards, I bet half pot, hoping to thin the field, and we go heads up with Kryptonite. I river a flush on the top, while the bottom brings in 4 spades. I definitely want to bluff my opponent off a chop here, and I think potting it to target the middle of Kryptonite's range feels right. These boards are pretty similar, so I think the top of his range will have some pretty easy calls. Jamming seems less effective because if he has a hand like Queen 9 or a high spade with a pair on top, then we chop, and I risk getting coolered by a higher heart flush. So I pot it, and luckily my opponent has a brick straight draw and lays it down. This hand is straddled, 2-5-10. I open the cutoff with King 10, and the small blind defends. The graphics are wrong here. The flop is 9-9-7, which is pretty good for my opponent's small blind flatting range. So I opt to take a free card. I find no help on the turn, so when my opponent checks again, I bet 2/3 and he calls. I brick out the river, and of course the only way to win here is to bet. So I fire again, and my opponent quickly folds second pair, which I think is too conservative. And the next hand, pick up Jack 10 of hearts in the big blind. The button opens to 20, I 3-bet to 100, and we go heads up to a flop of Queen Jack 9 rainbow. This is a nice flop. I start off with a c-bet, and my opponent calls. The sexy 8 of hearts immediately peels off on the turn. Here I debate between trapping or betting the turn. With a hand this strong, I can't go wrong. I think my opponent is likely to expect me to have a 10 less often than I actually do. If he's putting me on a weaker hand like Ace-King or Ace-Queen, I might be able to pick off some bluffs. So I check it to Chicken Parm, he sizes up, and I call. The river bricks out, Parm fires one more time, I call, and he is bluffing with Ace-King. Pretty well played by him, but this time I had it. A little bit later, I'm in the small blind, facing an open from Texas Tommy and a call from Parm. I have Jack 10 of hearts. It worked for me once. Let's see if it'll work again. I squeeze, Tommy calls, and I flop some backdoors on Queen 6-6. I c-bet, Tommy calls, and the turn is an offsuit ace. I have a gut shot and a range advantage, so I'm firing. I size up the turn here, which was probably a mistake. If I had an ace, I don't think I would actually play it like this, but I get away with it as Tommy folds an underpair. This hand, I'm in the straddle with Ace-Queen offsuit, and the small blind opens to 40. I 3-bet, he calls, and the flop is Jack 7-6. Playing blind versus blind, this board seems decent for my opponent, and I check back hoping to improve if I'm not already good. But the turn is a 4. Again, it goes check check, and the river is a king. My opponent blocks 20% pot, which is a bit odd when a king should favor me. Every option seems reasonable. It would be a shame to fold to such a small bet if he's somehow bluffing, but he probably has at least a pair. I want to raise, but I'm concerned that he's giving me the induce, so I see no choice but to fold. Kryptonite opens large from early position, and I'm on the button with Ace-4 suited. I 3-bet and flop the nut flush draw on Jack 6-3. I c-bet, he calls, and the turn is an offsuit queen. I continue firing for half pot here, expecting to get a fold from any middling pocket pairs, but instead my opponent raises to 425. I make the call, getting about 3-1 on my money with great implied odds. The river pairs the 6, and my opponent slows down with a river check. Although I would have preferred a heart, this is a nice river, reducing the likelihood of my opponent having pocket 6s, so I think it is possible he was bluffing the turn and decided to give up. He could have a hand that we already beat, like King 10 or 10-9, but I would hate to lose to a hand like a lower pocket pair or chop with ace 10. So I send my chips into the middle, 1600 into 1200, and it feels great to get a snap fold here. Adam had ace 9 with the backdoor flush draw on the flop. His turn check raise is a bit dubious, but I respect the chutzpah. The very next hand, I pick up another premium. I open ace queen suited in the cutoff and call Tommy's big blind 3-bet. I flop air on jack high, but luckily my opponent checks and I take a free card. I turn a wheel draw, Tommy checks, and I think I probably should have started bluffing here, but I was a bit spooked by the quick check and probably feeling a bit passive after having just fired a big bluff. So I check it back, the river's a 6, it goes check check, and I lose to pocket 10s. I don't love the way I played this one. This hand, I have the 10s. I open early position and call Jimmy's 3-bet from the hijack. We go heads up to a flop of king king deuce. I check, Jimmy c-bets, and I go for this small flop raise, which in hindsight I don't like. I wanted to extract some value from floats and get some information, but this is his board and now my hand is somewhat exposed. The turn is a deuce, double pairing the board, which I don't think is too relevant because Jimmy's probably not 3-betting with a deuce in this config. I check call a half pot size bet and the river is a jack. I check, Jimmy overbets, and he's been fairly snug, so I quickly relinquish my hand. Later, I see Jimmy own me with complete error here, which I think is good recognition of the situation by Jimmy. Well played by him. I think I botched this hand on the flop. At the end of the night, I booked a win of $1,600. I caught a nice run of hands with some lucky card distribution, but I did miss a few opportunities. Thank you to Best Bet Jacksonville for hosting this stream, and thank you for watching. I'll see you guys in the next video.